There's a reason you stay when you should have bounced a long time ago. A reason you keep showing up for people who wouldn't cross the street for you. A reason you feel completely alone even when you're surrounded by folks who claim they got your back. Dogs have always been symbols of loyalty, but here's the real question. Which kind of loyalty is yours? Don't overthink this. Don't get in your head about it. Just feel. See, loyalty works the same way instinct does. It ain't something we sit down and calculate like some kind of math problem. We don't debate it in our minds, weighing pros and cons like we're making a business decision. Nah, loyalty hits different. It's felt first, deep in your gut, way before your brain catches up. It comes from somewhere ancient, somewhere older than language itself, shaped by safety, trust, and straight-up survival. Dogs tap into that primal place almost instantly. Before you even start thinking about behavior or meanings or what any of this represents, something inside you already reacted. And that reaction? It's brutally honest. It's raw. It ain't polished or filtered or dressed up for company. And that's exactly why it matters more than anything you could think through. Dogs and humans got history together, and I ain't talking decades or even centuries. We're talking thousands of years, way back before comfort was even a concept, before rules existed, before anybody sat around philosophizing about values or morals or what it means to be a good person. Back in those days, loyalty wasn't some cute idea you put on a greeting card. It was protection. It was the difference between making it through the night and becoming something's dinner. Staying close to your pack meant staying alive. Period. Trust wasn't something you talked about over coffee. It was something you proved by showing up again and again, by not dipping out when things got sketchy or uncertain. That ancient history still lives inside every single one of us, whether we recognize it or not. Dogs became symbols of companionship because they stayed when everything else fell apart. They guarded the entrance, followed without question, waited through long nights, and stood watch when everyone else was sleeping. They learned our rhythms, our moods, our patterns, and we learned theirs right back. That bond created a sense of emotional safety long before humans had vocabulary for feelings. So when you react to a dog, you ain't just seeing some cute animal. You're feeling an ancient signal tied to trust and the deep need to stay close to what keeps you safe. Loyalty started as a survival mechanism, not some moral high ground. And that's exactly why dogs hit something deep in us before we can even explain what's happening. Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist who understood the human mind like few others ever have, believed that the unconscious is constantly communicating with us, even when we're completely unaware of it. But here's the thing. It doesn't speak in clear sentences or logical explanations that make immediate sense. The unconscious speaks through symbols. Images reach us before words ever could. Long before any of us learned how to articulate our feelings or explain ourselves properly, we learned how to react. Images over logic, feeling over reasoning. That's how the inner world grabs our attention and refuses to let go. This is exactly why both attraction and resistance matter when you're doing something like this. What pulls you in and what makes you low-key uncomfortable are both signals worth paying attention to. You don't choose randomly, even when the choice feels casual or like it doesn't mean much. Your unconscious is already responding, already sorting through information, already reacting based on patterns that got shaped by every experience, memory, and emotion you've ever had. So when a particular dog catches your attention, that reaction ain't accidental or meaningless. It's communication from a part of yourself you don't always have access to. Something beneath the surface is recognizing something familiar, something that feels safe, or something that's still unresolved and waiting to be dealt with. Before you go any further with this, there's one thing that matters more than everything else combined. Don't overthink it. The moment you start comparing dogs, ranking them in your head, or trying to figure out what each one is supposed to mean, you step completely out of space where this actually works. Don't rank them by how cute they are or how well-behaved they seem. Don't judge their behavior or try to pick the smartest-looking one or the friendliest option. None of that surface-level stuff is the point here. What actually matters is that first pull, that instant gut feeling that shows up before you can put words to it. It might feel like comfort washing over you, or it might feel like tension creeping up your spine. Both reactions are completely valid and equally important. Even resistance counts. especially resistance. If we're being real about it, loyalty patterns don't live in the logical part of your brain where you make grocery lists and plan your schedule. They live way below that, in reactions that happen faster than conscious thought can keep up with. So let whatever comes up just be what it is. You ain't trying to get the right answer here like it's some kind of test. You're just letting something real about yourself show up and be seen. Loyalty isn't weakness, even though society treats it that way more often than not. It's not blind devotion that ignores red flags and warning signs. And it's definitely not about being nice or agreeable or easy to deal with all the time. When you strip away all the romantic notions, loyalty at its core is a survival strategy. It's the instinct to stay close to what feels safe, to what once protected you, supported you, or helped you get through something you couldn't have handled alone. That instinct didn't appear out of thin air. It was learned early, shaped by crucial moments when staying connected to certain people or situations genuinely matter for your well-being. Over time, that survival instinct transforms into adaptive behavior that runs on autopilot. We repeat what worked before, often without having the slightest clue why we're doing it. So when you really think about loyalty, it ain't about personality traits or labels you can slap on yourself. It's about lived experience. It's about what your nervous system learned to trust during your most formative years and what it learned to hold on to for dear life. The way you stay loyal today, the patterns you fall into without thinking, usually has way more to do with your past than with who you consciously believe yourself to be. If the first dog pulled you in, the energy surrounding your loyalty is protection. This is the guardian archetype, the one who's always watching the door, staying alert and ready, constantly aware of what could possibly go wrong before it happens. Loyalty, when it shows up this way, is completely tied to responsibility. You're probably someone who feels the deep need to hold everything together, especially when everyone around you is falling apart at the seams. You show up consistently, you stay steady when chaos erupts, and you take on way more than your fair share of the burden, because being needed gives you a sense of purpose and control that nothing else provides. But here's where it gets complicated. This kind of loyalty almost always comes packaged with serious trust issues. Your guard stays up around the clock, even in your closest relationships where you should theoretically feel safe. Protecting others can feel way safer than allowing yourself to be vulnerable and exposed. On the deepest level, loyalty for you carries this unspoken message. I protect others so I don't get hurt myself. You stay loyal by being the strong one, by staying ready for whatever threat might appear, by making absolutely sure nothing slips through the cracks on your watch. It's not that you don't care about people. It's that caring about people taught you the hard way, that you need to stay on constant watch to keep everyone safe. The shadow side of this protective loyalty is burnout that creeps up slowly and then hits you all at once. When you're always protecting, always holding things together with your bare hands, it becomes nearly impossible to actually relax and let your guard down. Your emotional armor stays strapped on even when the danger has long since passed. You're always switched on, always scanning the environment for threats, always ready to step in and handle whatever crisis pops up next. Over time, that weight accumulates in ways you can't ignore forever. Carrying way too much doesn't always look dramatic from the outside. Sometimes it just looks like quiet exhaustion that nobody else notices because you've gotten so good at hiding it. This is what goes down when loyalty crosses the line and goes too far. Emotional armor keeps you safe from getting hurt, but also keeps you perpetually tired in ways that sleep can't fix. You might be the person everyone leans on and counts on, yet you're rarely the one who actually feels supported or taken care of by anyone else. And at some point, a deeper question starts bubbling up to the surface, even if you never say it out loud to another soul. Who protects you when you're the one who needs protection? Over-loyalty can slowly drain the life out of you, not because you're weak or incapable, but because you've been strong for way too long without any real rest or recognition. If the second dog stood out to you, this is the energy of connection and warmth. The friendly, companion type who makes everyone feel welcome. Loyalty here shows up as simply being there, as showing up again and again regardless of what's happening, no matter what drama unfolds or what difficulties arise. You stay close to people. You offer genuine warmth that can light up a room. You have this gift for making people feel truly seen and valued. For you, loyalty through presence feels completely natural, like breathing. Being available, supportive, and emotionally open is just how you maintain your connections with the people who matter. But this kind of loyalty can slide real quick into people-pleaser territory if you're not careful. You probably dislike conflict with a passion and feel this overwhelming need for harmony, even if creating that harmony means putting your own needs on the back burner indefinitely. Feeling useful becomes a sneaky way to feel secure in your relationships, like you're earning your place at the table. On a deeper level, the belief running underneath this whole pattern is painfully simple yet incredibly powerful. If I'm kind enough, I won't be abandoned. This ain't manipulation or some calculated game you're playing. It's survival behavior learned through the lens of connection and the deep need to maintain it. The shadow of this loyalty pattern shows up real quiet. So quiet you might miss it until the damage is done. It starts with ignoring what you actually need and saying yes way too much, even when something deep inside you is calling out to say no. You might tell yourself it's just easier to go along with what others want, to keep things smooth and drama-free, to avoid rocking the boat and making waves. But underneath that choice to keep the peace is usually a deep fear of rejection that you don't want to examine too closely. The constant worry that if you disappoint someone even once, they might pull away and never come back. Over time, this kind of loyalty leads to slowly losing yourself piece by piece. You stay connected to everyone else, but at a cost that keeps growing. A quiet resentment starts building up inside, not necessarily because other people are doing anything wrong to you, but because you've been consistently leaving yourself out of the picture while making sure everyone else is taken care of. Loyalty without boundaries doesn't break all at once with some big dramatic moment. It fades to self slowly, gradually, almost imperceptibly, until one day you wake up and realize you've been fully present for everybody else while being completely absent from your own needs and desires. If the third dog caught your attention, loyalty for you takes on a completely different shape than the others. You are loyal, no doubt about that, but you're loyal from a distance. You genuinely care about people, but you need your space to function properly. Independence isn't a rejection of connection for you, or some sign that you don't want people in your life. It's actually how you stay grounded and maintain your sense of self. You trust people on your own terms and timeline, and that trust builds up slowly through consistent actions over time. Too much closeness happening too fast makes you feel boxed in and claustrophobic, like someone is asking for way more emotional bandwidth than you can realistically provide. When things start feeling heavy or demanding, your first instinct is probably to pull away and create some distance. Not to hurt anybody or play games with their feelings, but just to breathe and get your head right. There's this quiet message running underneath this whole pattern that whispers, "Don't try to cage me." Loyalty in your world means something like, "I'll stay and I'll be there for you, but I won't disappear into you or lose myself in this relationship." You can remain genuinely connected to people, but only if you're allowed to still be yourself, with enough room to move and think and exist as an individual. The shadow side of this independent pattern is emotional distance that can become a wall nobody can climb. When maintaining your independence becomes a top priority above everything else, it gets really hard to rely on other people, even when support is available and being freely offered. You might have a tendency to leave situations before you can be left, not because you don't care about what you're leaving behind, but because staying too close for too long starts to feel genuinely risky to your sense of self. Trust issues often sit beneath this pattern, shaped by specific moments in your past when depending on someone led to serious disappointment or painful loss. This dynamic creates a kind of lonely strength that's both your superpower and your limitation. You learn how to stand completely on your own 2 feet, how to manage life without leaning too heavily on anybody else for anything important. But too much independence operating over time can quietly block real intimacy from ever developing. The wall that protects your precious freedom can also keep genuine closeness locked out permanently. Vulnerability starts to feel like a genuine threat to your safety instead of a bridge to deeper connection, and real intimacy becomes something you circle around endlessly instead of ever fully stepping into and experiencing. If the fourth dog is the one that called to you, loyalty in your world is earned through consistent action, never assumed just because someone claims to care. Trust comes to you slowly, carefully, one small proof at a time. Past wounds taught you to be extremely careful about who you let in, so you watch people closely for signs of who they really are. You notice small changes in behavior, subtle tone shift that others miss completely, and any inconsistencies between what people say and what they actually do. You might test people, not to manipulate them or play mind games, but to genuinely see if they're steady and reliable, if they actually mean what they say, if they'll stick around when things get hard and uncomfortable. There's often a deep, almost primal fear of betrayal lurking underneath this pattern. You've learned through painful experience that closeness can hurt badly, so establishing safety has to come first before anything else can happen. But here's the flip side that makes this beautiful. Once that safety is genuinely established and real, your loyalty runs deeper than almost anyone else's. Once you're truly loyal to someone, you're loyal in ways that are profound and unshakable. This kind of bond isn't loud or flashy or performative for social media. It's quiet, steady, and completely serious. Loyalty for you carries this message. I stay only when I feel genuinely safe, but when I do stay, I'm not going anywhere. The shadow here shows up as walls that stay up even when part of you desperately wants to let them come down. Expecting loss and disappointment can become such an ingrained habit that you're bracing for impact even in genuinely good situations. You protect yourself not because you're cold or incapable of love, but because you've learned firsthand how quickly things can fall apart when you least expect it. Self-protection transforms into a constant state of being, making it incredibly hard to relax and be present, even in moments that are specifically meant to feel safe and loving. You might find yourself constantly scanning every interaction, reading between the lines of what people say, mentally preparing for disappointment before it actually happens so it won't hurt as bad. This pattern isn't weakness or paranoia or being damaged goods. It's adaptation to circumstances that required you to be vigilant. Old wounds shape our loyalty patterns way more than most of us want to admit, quietly influencing how close we're willing to get and how much emotional risk we're willing to take. Your heart genuinely wants connection and craves intimacy, but your past keeps sending up warning flares telling it to stay alert and ready. Here's something crucial to understand. There ain't no right choice in this whole thing. Each dog represents a dominant pattern that's active in your life right now, not some fixed identity that defines you forever. At different points in your life, during different seasons and circumstances, different survival roles naturally rise to the surface based on what you're dealing with. What you chose today reflects learned loyalty, shaped by your specific experiences, your memories, and whatever once kept you safe when you needed protection most. These patterns didn't come from conscious decisions you made after careful deliberation. They grew quietly into unconscious habits over years and years of living. The important realization is this. You ain't just one dog locked into one pattern permanently. One pattern is simply louder than the others right now, running the show from behind the scenes. But when you bring genuine awareness to what's happening, something meaningful starts to shift inside you. Awareness creates choice where there wasn't any before. You begin noticing when your loyalty is running on autopilot, just reacting from old programming, versus when it's actually intentional and chosen in the present moment. Real integration begins when you stop judging whatever pattern showed up and start trying to understand where it came from and what was trying to protect. Carl Jung called this whole process individuation, which is basically the lifelong journey toward becoming whole. It's the movement toward balance, not by cutting parts of yourself away or pretending they don't exist, but by bringing every aspect of who you are into conscious awareness where you can work with it. Instinct and awareness are meant to function together as partners, not as opposing forces fighting for control. When they finally sync up properly, loyalty stops being just a reflex you can't control and starts becoming something you actively choose based on what's actually happening right now. This is exactly where loyalty, without losing yourself, becomes genuinely possible for the first time. You can stay deeply connected to people without abandoning your own needs in the process. You can protect others without completely shutting down your own emotional life. You can be genuinely kind and giving without slowly disappearing from your own existence. True loyalty really begins when it stops being automatic, when it becomes a conscious choice made freely rather than a survival response running on old software. That's where real depth replaces hollow habit. And that's where actual growth and transformation finally begin to happen. Before you just move on with your day and forget all this, take a moment to let it land. Let this actually settle somewhere inside you instead of just sliding past. Start noticing your relationships with fresh eyes, not just who you're close to, but specifically how you stay loyal within each connection and what that loyalty costs you. Pay close attention to where you stay when maybe you shouldn't, where you protect at your own expense, and where remaining loyal to someone or something takes a genuine toll on your well-being. These patterns show up quietly in everyday moments, but they shape way more of your life than you probably realize. This whole thing was never really about dogs. When you think about it, it was about how you attach to people, how you protect yourself from getting hurt, and how you choose to stay in relationships even when staying is hard. If you feel comfortable sharing, drop your dog in the comments below. Someone else scrolling through might relate to your choice way more than you'd expect. And sometimes just recognizing yourself in another person's experience is a very first step toward truly understanding your own inner world.